Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Doffney. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library, and it is my pleasure to present our speaker for today, Leigh Clark, who is our Funding and Information Librarian here at the State Library. Today, she's going to be going over one of the resources we have available here, Foundation Directory Online. Before we jump into Leigh's presentation, I do have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions throughout the program today, so please feel free to use either the Q&A or the chat feature in the Zoom dashboard to submit your questions to us. A copy of the handout will be shared in the chat, as well as the login credentials for FDO. Those login credentials will be shared at the end of the presentation as per our agreement with Candid. And those credentials will be active for about 48 hours from today. At the end of the webinar, there will be a survey available. We ask that if you have time, please complete the survey. We always appreciate any feedback that you can provide. And we do have our own Funding Information Center page available at the web address on the screen there. That is chock full of information related to nonprofits, nonprofit management, grant writing, proposal writing, all sorts of great stuff that has been curated by Leigh. So we encourage you to go and visit that for more information. And one last thing before we jump into the presentation, I just want to do a brief overview of the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you're using a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you will see your audio settings. You can check here if you're using an external listening device like a headset or earbuds to make sure that it's connected properly. At any point during the presentation, if you have any issues, there is a raise hand button here in the middle. You can click on that and that'll alert me. I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to solve any problems that you are having. And as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, there's the Q&A or the chat buttons. You can send them to us and we'll be stopping periodically throughout the presentation to address them. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Leigh now. No.
Right now.
Okay, good.
All right, you should be seeing my slides. So welcome everybody. My name is Leigh Clark. I am the Business and Funding Information Librarian. I work within the State Library's Information Center, which is physically located in downtown Trenton. And the database that we're going to talk about today, Foundation Directory Professional, which we'll see in a little bit, is available on site at the State Library in Trenton, as well as some other libraries that I will show you today. You will, as Andrew said, you will get temporary credentials to test out some of the things that we're going to talk about in today's webinar. And then after that, you can come in to the library and use that database for free. So to kick things off, we have a couple polls today that we're going to do just to kind of gauge your experience and what you're trying to find funding for. So the first poll is just your experience level. So on a scale of 0 to 3, how would you rate your experience level with any of the Foundation Directory databases? Because there are a couple different subscription levels that they have. We're going to talk about the most robust version today, which is Foundation Directory Professional. So whatever your experience level is, feel free to indicate that. Give everybody a little bit of a chance to answer. Okay, so Andrew did share those results, and most people are coming in with no experience or very little experience, which is perfect. This is a beginner webinar, so that's great. Hopefully you're going to leave with more experience than you came in with. Okay, perfect. So today we're going to discuss how to access the Foundation Directory Professional or Foundation Directory in general, how to search within the database for funding opportunities, how to evaluate the grantmaker profiles that are within Foundation Directory to see if they're appropriate to explore for your organization, and how to save that information for later use. So most people come into the library, they're trying to gather as much information as they can, and then they're going to take it back with them to do further research to find those grant opportunities. And then, of course, as Andrew mentioned, we're going to stop periodically throughout today's webinar to answer your questions. So feel free to put those into the chat or the question and answer fields in Zoom. We're going to get these polls out of the way really quickly. So the second poll is to just kind of understand where you're coming from. So what are you trying to find funding to support? So I'm looking for funding to support either an established 501c3 nonprofit, so you have that designation from the IRS. You could also be some type of other nonprofit, a government entity, a for-profit business, yourself or another individual, and then other. There are many other types of organizations out there, so feel free to indicate if you're some other type of organization, and if you want, you can put where you're coming from in the chat if you feel comfortable sharing that. And this just helps us see where you're coming from and whether Foundation Directory is the most appropriate tool for you. Okay, so we're coming from a bunch of different places. So Andrew has shared those polls. Most of us are coming from 501c3 nonprofits, which is great. We do have a government entity, some for-profit businesses, and a few individuals. Okay, so I asked that question mainly just to preempt that the Foundation Directory database is primarily for nonprofit organizations. There is some individuals funding support that's in there, but is mainly coming from data that's pulled from private foundations or grant-making public charities that support legal nonprofits. And that's usually through that designation from the IRS. So 501c3 or some other legal charitable organization. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Most of us are coming from those 501c3 nonprofits, so that's great. Now, before we get into our third poll and then a little bit of a demonstration of Foundation Directory, I do want to talk to you a little bit about our Funding Information Center that we have here at the State Library. We are a community member with Candid, and Candid is the producer. They produce the Foundation Directory database that we're going to see today. They used to be known as the Foundation Center. A few years ago, the Foundation Center and GuideStar merged and became Candid, and we've been in their various forms a member with them since 1974. So we have a very robust collection here at the State Library, and we're hopefully known as someone that is a resource for the nonprofit community. Through that membership with Candid, we do provide free on-site access to 3 of their databases, the Foundation Directory Professional, which is what we're going to take a look at today. That is a database of past giving data for funders, primarily private foundations and grant-making public charities. There is some federal funding in there as well, and some corporate sponsored funding as well, direct corporate giving. The Grants to Individual database is the second database that we offer on site, and that's similar to the Foundation Directory, but it's geared not towards nonprofits, but more towards individual support. So think of scholarships, fellowships, grants to artists, musicians, that kind of thing. Research grants, those things that are going directly to individuals. It's a much smaller database, but it is available on site if you are interested in that. Recently, we also started to provide access to a version of GuideStar Pro. So if you're interested in researching nonprofits in your area by subject, by geography, GuideStar Pro is a directory of U.S. nonprofits and other charitable organizations, religious organizations, stuff like that. So you can search for a subject that's supported or geography, and you can get a list of the nonprofits that are that exist in that area. And that is available on site as well. All of those are on-site access only, so you can't access those remotely. And that's just based on the subscription that we have with Candid. In addition to our databases, we have over 1,000 print resources in the collection. You can see a little bit in that picture there. And those are materials, books, directories, periodicals on nonprofit management, grant research, really anything that you could think of in the social sector, we probably have a book on it. They can be accessed on site if you wanted to come in and check out those books on site, but you can also request them through interlibrary loan using your local public library if that service is available. We do loan those out to other libraries. In addition to those print resources, we do have a couple online research guides that I'm going to show you today. And those link to a bunch of different resources that are available for nonprofits in terms of looking for grants as well as nonprofit management. So we try to curate those resources to help you find what you need, in one location. We do offer free classes and tutorials, one of which you're taking part in right now. I encourage you to check out our events calendar. Not only are there events about business and nonprofits and grant writing and stuff like that, but we also have a variety of other programming on history, genealogy, health. So definitely take a look at them. They're all free and they are all virtual. If you're interested in learning more about the Foundation Directory, you need a little bit more hands-on support. I do one-on-one tutorials. So people can come in on site, schedule an appointment with me, and I will sit with you during your first session to kind of get you started in searching for your specific funding needs. So if you're interested in that, feel free to send me an email. I will share my information at the end of today. And it is available on our website. Okay, so let me just take a look at the chat, see if we have any questions. Nope. Okay, Andrew has put in the handouts in the chat, so if you want to download them, you can. They will be emailed to you and all registrants at the end of today's webinar. So we are not the only candid community location in New Jersey. There are other libraries throughout the state and nationwide that offer the same on-site access to those databases that I mentioned. Somerset County has several locations. Definitely check the website of the library first. And if you plan on visiting them, call them ahead of time to see what type of support their library provides. Is it just they're going to get you onto the computer and you can use it? Do they have staff there that can answer your questions? Just give them a heads up. It's a good idea because staffing and hours vary by location. Every library is different. There are other libraries that subscribe independent of the Candid Community Network. The ones that I know of are the Jersey City Public Library, the Toms River branch of the Ocean County Library System. So right here, I know they have a subscription, or they did very recently. And I think I did see on the Camden County Library's website that they list the Foundation Directory. So definitely look if you're located in kind of this middle area here. Take a look at your local public library and see if they offer a subscription to the Foundation Directory. You never know. There are some locations outside of New Jersey that are available. There are over 400 nationwide. So I've included this link at the bottom. So in case you have a location that is closer to you in another state, say Pennsylvania or New Jersey, you can search them here at candid.org/find-us. I like to point out that also we have a location very close to Trenton in Bristol, Pennsylvania. That is a public library, so their hours are a little bit different than ours. They're open on the weekends. They're open after 5, which the state library closes at 4:30, and we're not open on the weekends. So our hours are a little bit more limited. So let me go to our last poll. Last thing that we want to check before we get into our demonstration is what type of funding are you looking for? What are you looking for that money to support? So Andrew's going to launch that third and final poll. So I am looking for funding for a specific project or program, general operating support, building or renovation, individual development like fellowship, scholarship, something like that. Or of course, there are many other different options. You can select other, and I believe you can select multiple options there if you're looking for multiple things. All right, so we'll give everybody a little bit more time to answer that question. just to kind of give us an idea of what you're looking for funding for. Great, so we're kind of across the board here. If you did choose that other, feel free to put what you're looking for in the chat. We had one person respond other. Most of us are going for specific projects or programs. Definitely general operating support is always nice as well. And I do get pretty regular questions about building and renovations as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Most of the stuff that you're going to see in the database today goes to support projects or programs, but there are some general operating support, and in the details of the grant, you will see them briefly described. Okay. So before you get into the research process, before you sit down and you're on the computer doing the research in the database, you do want to answer some questions about what you're trying to support, and very similar to the questions that I asked you today. Within your organization, you want to think, who are you serving, or who is this project that you're going to fund serving? And in the database, that matches up with the population served field. So when we get into the database, you will see this field in the advanced search. So who are you serving? Try to describe them in as many ways as you can. Start broad, and then you can break it down into more specifics. Where are they located? So what is the geographic focus? Not necessarily where is your organization located, but where are the people that you're serving, or whoever you're serving located? You're going to see in the database that a funder may be located in California, but they do fund in New Jersey for some reason. So don't just limit yourself to funders who are located in New Jersey, but also who support within New Jersey. That's what that geographic focus means. And then what are you doing for them? That's your subject area. So that's probably the most important field that you're going to fill in. Is it health? Is it some type of social service, human service? Is it education? Are you supporting the arts? That kind of thing. And those are very broad, but you can break that down into more specific subject terms. And then lastly, you want to think about how you want to receive that funding. What type of grant are you looking for? Is it a cash grant, which would be probably the most, what you're looking for the most, with the least amount of restrictions? Is it a matching grant program that you're trying to match funds? Are you interested in any types of other grants or vehicles for funding, like in-kind support, that kind of thing? And then the support, those would be your transaction types. Support strategy is what is that funding actually going to be spent on? So is it your building and renovations? That's that last question that I asked you. Is it for a specific project or program? Is it going for a capital expenditure? Say you're trying to purchase equipment. Are you doing research? Is it to support a conference? That kind of thing. Is it a planning grant? So you want to think about that as much detail as you can before you go into the research process. That planning is very essential. It'll use your time to the best as you go into the research. So these are all fields that you're going to see when we get into the database. To get to the database, there's a couple different ways, and I'll show you when I change my screen here on our website. But again, I just want to point out our Funding Information Center website, which was linked on that first slide, that has links to all of our databases that are related to grant research, as well as nonprofits that are coming from Candid. And it has links to our research guides, as well as some tutorials and just a description of our print collection. So definitely check out that website if you haven't already. I will show you our grant information guide after our demonstration of the database. So just so that you know what you're looking at when you get into that research guide. So now I'm going to change my share, and we're going to go into a live demo of the database. Let me just check the chat, make sure we don't have any questions. Nope. There we go. All right, so let me switch my share. Okay, so you should be seeing our website now. This is our homepage at njstatelib.org. When you come on site, we can help you get into the database. If you go to a different library, it's going to be different how you're going to access it on site. You will get some temporary credentials at the end of today's session, and there will be a link that goes with that you can use to log in. But if you're on site, you're just going to access it from our website. And you can do that by going to electronic resources under research library and databases. Again, we always have someone at the reference desk that can help you get to this. So don't worry if you don't remember that. I'm just going to search for foundation to bring up that database. And there are 2 foundation directories listed in our database list. The free version you can access from anywhere. You do have to create a free account with Candid to do that. It is much more scaled down. You will just get some basic information about the funder, as well as a link to their 990 tax forms, which are freely available online. You do not have to access them through the database. The Foundation Directory Professional is the most robust version of the database. There is also an essential version that is a little bit more pared down. It doesn't have the grant information that you'll see. But they do have various subscription levels through Candid for that. We have the most robust version with Professional. So when you get into the database, you're going to see this landing page with a simple search box in the center. So we are going to start out with a pretty simple search. Say we're looking for funding to support the blind, for individuals that are blind in New Jersey. So I'm just going to simply type in the population, which is individuals who are blind, and New Jersey. Now, I haven't specified a subject, which is not necessarily the greatest search, but I want to show you kind of, if you start really simply, how to narrow your search within the advanced search and filters. So generally here, you want to put a subject and a geographic focus. Geographic focus in our case is New Jersey. So I'm just going to hit search and see what we get. Okay, so what the database did is it took my search blind New Jersey and it tries to match it the best it can with terms that are used in the database, which you can see up here in black. Assisted technology, independent lending for people with disabilities, New Jersey, people with visual impairment, and people with hearing impairments. Okay. So you're going to notice that sometimes the terms are appropriate and sometimes maybe not so much, such as the ones with people with hearing impairments. Depending on what you're looking for, you can kind of judge that. So to adjust those search terms that the database has returned to you, you can click the little X's next to those terms, or you can go into advanced search and filters. And here you can see those fields that I was mentioning before. Your subject area, that's your what are you going to support? Your geographic focus is your where, and your population served is your who are you supporting? Sometimes in the additional filters here, you might get some terms that show up in support strategy and transaction type. So remember, support strategy is how you're going to spend that money, whether it's program support, capital expenditures, that kind of thing. And transaction type is the type of funding. So cash grants, contracts, that kind of thing. I generally try to keep these 2 fields blank initially, unless I need to narrow my search down, because these terms will narrow your results a lot. I'm just going to close that advanced filters. Now, generally, you're not going to take the terms that it gives you at face value. You're going to have to adjust them a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this population term. Just click the X, it'll disappear. You may also see terms such as assistive technology. Let's say I'm not really sure if what I'm thinking of as assistive technology is what the database is defining it as. There is a way to look up the terms that come up. If say you see a term and you're not sure what it means. I do want to show you that website just in case you wanted to look up a term's definition. And that is called the Philanthropy Classification System. I have that up? No. Okay, so let me bring that up. It's called the Philanthropy Classification System. And if you just search Philanthropy Classification System or go to taxonomy.candid.org, this is also linked in your slides. This will have all of the definitions of the search terms used in Foundation Directory and other Candid databases. Now, I was looking for assistive technology, and that's a subject term. So I'm going to go under subjects. And there's a couple different ways you can search. You can search A to Z. You can search the hierarchy. Or you can just do a keyword search. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to search assistive. So right at the top is assistive software and assistive technology. So I might be getting more terms that might be appropriate for my search. If I click on that, it's going to show me this definition on the side here, and I can see if it's appropriate for what I'm looking for. It's possible. And say I'm interested in assistive software too. I can take a look and see if that definition works. Braille translation software, screen readers. So it might be appropriate depending on what type of grant I'm looking for and the project that I'm looking to support. So if I'm going for like equipment support or trying to purchase equipment to help the population that I'm serving, that might be appropriate. Also down here at the bottom, I have special population support, which if I go back into the database, I'm going to show you how that relates to independent living for people with disabilities. So let me get rid of that assistive technology. I just want to show you, sometimes you're not sure what terms are going to come up. I just want to show you a couple different strategies for searching for different search terms. So say I saw that assistive software and I want to add that to my subject area. I can just start typing assistive and it'll bring up any subject term that has that in the word or in the string of words. So I can see assistive software, that falls under information and communication. Assistive technology falls under science and technology. So you can see how those terms are organized in a hierarchy. If I wanted to include them, I could just click it in and it'll add it to the box. I am actually going to get rid of that for right now and just hit search to refresh that. I also want to show you where independent living for people with disabilities falls. Say I don't know, I want to explore the hierarchy and just kind of see what's there. I can click into that field and it will bring up the hierarchy for you. So you can kind of explore the terms that are available. I know this falls under human services, so that's what I'm going to bring up. And it's under special population support. And here you'll have that independent living for people with disabilities. So you can kind of see the hierarchy of that term. Those are just a few ways that you can add different search terms in there, search by keyword, look at the hierarchy, or just take what that simple search gave us. So I like what I have here. I'm going to hit search again just to refresh my results. At this point, I'm going to stop before I get into my results and see if anybody has any questions about searching and narrowing those search terms down. Let's see. Okay, we did have a question. We are recording today's webinar, so you will get a link to that. That's going to be emailed to all registrants. And also in the chat is a link to the handout, so we will be putting that back in at the end, along with those 48-hour credentials. So hang in to the end, you will get that information. Okay, I don't think there were any other questions, no. So I'm going to go into the results. So this database will return results in 4 categories. Grant makers who have given grants in the area that we search. Remember, this is past giving data. Okay, so this is not necessarily an announcement of a grant, but it shows that this funder has given in the area, which is what we searched up here in New Jersey for independent living for people with disabilities and people with vision impairment. These are the grants that they gave. There are 33 recipients of those grants, and the 990 tax forms are the forms that the private foundations and other nonprofits submit to the IRS, and where a lot of this data in this database is coming from. So private foundations do have to record the grants that they gave, who they gave it to, how much were they for, and the general subject of those grants. So that data is pulled and aggregated in Foundation Directory, along with other data from annual reports and funders' websites, as well as other data sources. So that's where those 990s come into play. Again, the 990 forms are available for free through various different websites, including the IRS. So you don't have to use this database to view them if you wanted to. You do kind of have to have an idea of what funder you're looking for, though, in order to look up their 990 form. So most people come into the library, they're looking for those grant maker records. So that's what we're going to focus on today. initially, you're going to see the top 5 results in each category. Grant makers are organized by grant count in the area that we searched. Grants are organized by year. Recipients are organized by grant count received, so that is in the area that we searched. And then the 990 tax forms are organized by year. So if we go back up to the grant makers, I'm going to view all of the grant maker results because there are some additional filters once we get into that window. Right here at the top, you can see some additional filters. You can adjust based on the assets that the funder has recorded in the last year's 990 tax form that is recorded in the database. It could be a couple years older. And then the total giving that they've given over all areas. So the total giving and a grant amount represent, total assets and total giving represent the last year's 990 tax form, whatever is the last reported. The amount funded and the grant count represent multiple years of giving in the area that we searched. So that means in the area that we searched, as it appears up here in the search field, this funder has given over $300,000, totaling 143 grants that have been recorded in this database. That could go all the way back to 2003. So that's how far the data in this database goes. So just be aware that that's what that represents. In these search fields up at the top, the filters, you can also exclude grant makers non-accepting applications. And what that means is that sometimes private foundations on their 990 tax forms will check a box that indicates that they only give to pre-selected grantees. So if that box has been checked and we check this box, all those funders that have checked that we only give to pre-selected grantees go away. Now that's not necessarily, just be aware that sometimes they'll check that box. You may be able to build a relationship with that funder. They give in the area that you support. They're very active in your location. You may be able to build a relationship with that funder that may lead to funding down the road. So just be aware when you check this box, you may be excluding funders that you could build a relationship with that may lead to funding down the road. So just be careful. It's whether you check this box or not is really dependent on how you plan to search and your time constraints and how much time you have to develop those relationships. So I am going to show you just what happens when you check that box. Notice we have 513 grant results or grant maker results. I check that box, it's going to drop it at least in half, if not more. So I'm just going to leave that checked for our purposes today. One thing I also like to note as I'm looking at these grant maker results is I like to compare the amount funded versus the grant count. A lot of times the grant count, you'll see that they're getting a lot of grants, but the amount isn't really that much. So the grants are probably smaller. And that happens a lot with private company-sponsored foundations where they might have an employee matching program. So those initial donations are coming from an individual, and then that foundation, say the Bank of America Charitable Foundation, will match that amount. So the amount of the grant is relatively small, even though they're giving a lot of the grants. So just be aware of that if you notice that, man, they're giving a lot of grants, but it's not really totaling to a lot. So you go through, you kind of observe them, and if you're interested in the funder, you can mouse over their name. You're going to get some additional information. You can mouse over the number of grants and get some information there. If you click it, you can see those grants that they gave. If you click their name, you'll be brought to their full profile, which has a lot more information. So before I go into the full profile to explore that, I just want to check to see if we have any questions. Should we look for funders outside of New Jersey? Yes. So I'm going to use this example here. I'm assuming, Jody, that you mean who are located, like maybe their legal address is outside of New Jersey. I would say yes. Don't restrict yourself to those that are only located in New Jersey, because you could have a legal address outside of New Jersey, but they have a connection to New Jersey and they still fund in that location. Maybe they've retired to Florida, they live in Florida, they're operating that foundation out of Florida, but they're from New Jersey, or they went to school in New Jersey, that kind of thing, or they have some type of personal connection or financial connection to New Jersey. So yeah, that's why we searched in geographic focus instead of location. Geographic focus means they live in New Jersey. Location means they're located in New Jersey. So really location doesn't really matter unless you're looking for somebody specific. So notice I'm going into the Hoffman Foundation here. Their office or whoever is administering their foundation is located in Nevada. But you'll notice once we get into the profile that their 5-year snapshot here at the top shows that they're giving heavily in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, as well as some grants in Georgia. So it doesn't matter that they're located or their offices or whoever is administering their foundation is located here. They're giving in New Jersey, and that's what really matters. Okay, so that was the only question we had there. This 5-year snapshot at the top, as well as there's going to be a link to their website if they have one, as well as a direct link to the Who's Who section, which we'll see in a second, and their contact information, which is all the way at the bottom of their profile. Right at the top, you're going to see that 5-year snapshot. This represents their total giving, not just in the area that we searched. You can see if this funder, they might have given to the area that you searched, but you can see here if it's really a priority for them, if it's a strong match with your organization. So we're searching for support services that really fall into the human services subject area. So that is the primary giving subject, which is a good sign. They give heavily in New Jersey, and their most common grant amounts are between $10,000 and $25,000. So going into the research process, you should know how much money you're looking for. That way you can match the capacity that you need with the funder's capacity to give. And this can kind of tell you the types of grants or the size of the grant that they're most likely to give. Below that, you're going to see the grants that have been recorded in the database that are given in the area that we searched. Notice that you can see the subject areas that are associated with them. If you click the recipient, you will get a general description of the grant. Sometimes the description is not very detailed. It just says general operating. A lot of times those are being pulled from the 990 forms. There's not really a huge amount of space to write about what the grant was for. So it may just be a couple words describing what it was towards. You can see it was a cash grant for general operating support and the subjects associated with that. And that's coming from the recipient here. When it was given, how much it was, and the grant maker. You can download these grant profiles or details if you're interested in them. Let me go back. You can also view all of the grants that were given in the list. In this case, this database goes back to 2003. So you may see things all the way back to 2003. Below that is some search terms that are associated with the funder used in the database. So you can see their geographic focus, which matches with what that map showed us up here at the top. The About section will give you some general purpose. This is not a super descriptive one, but it's common for private foundations that are family foundations, relatively smaller. This tells us they're giving primarily for the blind or research for the prevention of blindness, which is a good sign and matches what we're searching for. Sometimes the foundation directory will also suggest funders that are similar. They might be located in a similar place, support similar subject areas, or give relatively similar grant amounts. So you might see that here. Under the application and RFP section, this is generally what I look at first because it will give you the giving limitations. So I like to look at this first to see, is my organization or what I'm looking to fund excluded by this funder? They don't have any geographic or program limitations, but it does tell us that they give mostly in New Jersey and New York to support help for the blind and medical research for the blind, which is fitting with what we search. So that's a good sign. So we're going to continue to look at this funder. It also tells us to go to their website for more application guidelines. I strongly suggest if they have a website that you always check there. This information is updated regularly, but if they have a website, that's going to have the most up-to-date information. At the bottom, you're going to see their financials with a link to their 990 tax form. The most recent one is from 2002. You will see a gap generally of maybe 1 or 2 years, possibly 3, but the IRS is catching up from the pandemic, so that's good. If you do see a gap of 2 years, don't let that discourage you. That's normal. It takes some time for the information to get sent to the IRS, for the IRS to process it. for those 990 tax forms to get posted by the IRS and for that information to make it into this database. So there is sometimes a delay there. Below that, you'll see a who's who section. Sometimes officers or donors are listed here, so you can find a connection with your organization and the funder. In this case, the foundation is administered by a bank. It's by Wells Fargo. So that's why that's listed here. And then you're going to see a communication section that may be places where people have mentioned the grants that they've received by the funder, or an annual report put out by the funder. The funder might also have their own social media presence. So that'll give you more information about who they're supporting, what their funding is going towards. And you can see, is this funder a good match for your organization? Are they supporting similar things to what I would like to support? At the bottom, you're going to get their contact information. I would always note their EIN number. Sometimes funders or nonprofits will go by one name, but their legal name is something different. And sometimes finding them by that legal name could be a little challenging. So I always like to note their EIN number because that's very easy to search. It generally doesn't change, or you can't have variations. It's just a number. If they have a website, it's going to be listed here. And then you can see some additional information. So definitely go into that website, see if they've listed those guidelines, see if it applies to your organization and it fits with your needs, and whether you're going to be able to have a good match with this funder. It's going to be mutually beneficial. So say I really like this profile, and I want to save it for later to do some further research. I don't see that we have any questions, so I'm just going to keep going. You can save those up at the top. You can save it as a PDF by clicking this PDF tool here, or you can email the PDF directly from the database using the envelope tool. The bell, the star, and the tag doesn't work for our multi-user account, so you can just ignore them. Those are for individual subscribers. So that's how you would save. I always encourage people, if they're coming into the library to do research, to bring some type of portable storage device like a flash drive, so that you can save this information for later. You can also save lists of grant makers or lists of grants recipients. If we go back to our search results, I'll show you how to do that. So down here at the bottom, you can see those tools at the top here. First, you do have to check the grant makers that you're interested in. You can check up to 100 at a time that appear on the page. It's going to list this 156 results in 2 pages. The first page has 100, the next page will have 56 because it only lists 100 at a time. So you can select up to 100 to download for each download. The PDF tool has 2 options. You can save it as a list or save it as multiple profiles in one document. The list, you can select up to 100. If you're doing multiple profiles, you can only select 10 because those profiles are multiple pages and the document would be very, very big if it was 100. So if you're doing a list, you can do up to 100. If you're doing the profiles, you can only select 10. I don't really love doing multiple profiles in one document because it's very hard to separate them later. You need like some type of Adobe PDF software to do that. But the list will show you what appears here. If you do use the CSV tool, you could select up to 100 at a time, but it will give you some additional contact information. I'll give you the website, email address, more than what you're going to see right here. So that is my preferred way of doing that. For the PDF tools, you can email them directly from the database. The CSV option, you don't have that. You can't email it. You would have to save it to a storage device. The nice thing also about the CSV is that you can, if you can only do 100 at a time, you can copy and paste multiple downloads into one spreadsheet to kind of store them all in the same place, so that you have a little bit more flexibility with the spreadsheet. Does anybody have any questions about how you evaluate the profile, how it's saved? Andrew, do we see any questions in the chat or the question and answer?
Not at this time.
Okay, so if you do have any questions about that, please put those into the chat. There's one more thing before we get out of here that I do want to show you. So I'm just going to start a new search. I'm going to go into advanced search and filters. Actually, you know what? Let's just say I'm looking for one specific funder. I want the profile for a funder. Let's say I'm going to look for the Hoff. I'm probably going to get a million different. Let me copy that name. I'm going to copy that name. Say I'm looking for them specifically. I haven't done my initial search. I want their profile. You can just put it in this simple search box and it should bring that up. Hoffman is a fairly general name, so it's not coming up initially. So if you go into the advanced search and filters under organization name, you can put that in and that will bring up the specific funder. Sometimes you'll see multiple entries here. One will say grant maker, one will say recipient. Sometimes they have received funding, so they have two different profiles, two separate profiles. If you click this little box with the arrow, it will bring up the whole profile, not just in what we searched before, but all of their funding. And you have the same save options here at the top. So that's how you would search for a specific funder. So I'm going to actually go back to my slides if we don't have any questions and just show you a couple more things before we wrap up today. So some things to think about as you're looking at those grant maker profiles in the Foundation Directory database. These are just some general questions that you want to answer as you look at them to evaluate if it's right for your organization. You're looking for a mutually beneficial match between the funder and your organization. So first things first, do you meet the funder's eligibility requirements? If you don't waste your time looking at that funder. Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. Even if you have similar interests, if you're not the correct type of organization, if you're not a 501c3 nonprofit and that's the only type of organization they support, move on, try to find a different funder. Do your goals and mission match with the funder's giving priorities? And this is where Foundation Directory is really powerful. So you can do those subject searches and that population search to see if you're supporting a similar subject area or population as the funder. The closer that matches, the stronger the chance that you are going to receive that funding. So does the funder support organization similar to yours? So definitely look within the Foundation Directory and see who are they supporting? Is it a similar type of organization? Are they doing similar programs? Because if they're supporting very similar organizations, maybe they're supporting in a different geography, they haven't supported in your location yet, that might be a good potential funder for your organization. Does the funder give grants in the amount that you need? This is very important. You don't want to approach a funder that doesn't have the capacity to give the amount that you're looking for. So look at those average grant amounts, look at the types of the actual grants that they're giving in the area that you're looking for to make sure that capacity is there. Does your organization have a connection with the funder? So research is very important, but relationship building is very key in getting that initial grant as well as sustained giving over time. So you want to look for connections that you have within your community and the funders community. And that who's who section, though wasn't very robust in the profile that we looked at, can be helpful there because it does have program officers, key staff members that may be able to, you may be able to link within your organization if you reach out to your stakeholders. Some other helpful websites that I do want to point out to you, we've talked about our Funding Information Center page. All these are going to be linked in your slides in the handout that is in the chat. Philanthropy classification systems, so that's where those definitions for the search terms used in the database are. So that link is there for you. As I mentioned, the 990 tax forms is where a lot of that data is coming from. This is just one 990 finder that Candid has that you can use to find those 990s. There are other ones, which I'll show you in a second on a research guide, where you don't have to be on site, you don't have to use the database. You can look up those 990 finders and see what the funder has, what that private foundation has given to in the last recorded tax year. How much are they giving? Who are they giving to? What was it for? That will show up in those 990 tax ones. I'm going to show you this grant information research guide in a moment, as well as these two other websites. So let me change my share. If you have any questions, please put those into the chat because we're almost at time. We have 10 more minutes. let me go back to my web browser. Close that. This was the taxonomy. Get rid of that. Okay, so let me open up, go back to our website. This is our homepage, and I wanted to show you our research guides. So if I go to State Library homepage /funding info, that'll bring you to our Funding Information Center page. That has links to our research guides as well as the databases. These links will not work because you won't be on site. If you are on site and you try these links, they will bring you right to the databases. If you're off site, it will ask you to log in. So here you'll have links to our research guide. I'm going to show you our grant information research guide. Another place to find these on our website is under Research Library Research Guides. That'll have a full list of all of the research guides that we have. We have a whole bunch here at the State Library. But I just want to focus on our grant information today. When you come into the grant information research guide, you can access this from anywhere. If you're at home on your computer right now, you can get to this. It'll have information on proposal writing. So links to Candid Learning, which is a website that I strongly recommend you take a look at. Candid Learning is great. It has trainings, knowledge-based resources, sample documents. So definitely Candid Learning is a great resource for just general knowledge on grant writing, fundraising, nonprofit management. There's some additional books that we have on site, sample documents. I also like to provide you with links for federal grants, not only grants.gov, but direct links to the agency's website where there might be additional information on the grants that or the grant programs they have. State grants through New Jersey, unlike the federal grants, there is not one place to go like grants.gov. It's agency specific or department specific. So I do try to link to the major departments within New Jersey's grant pages. For example, this is the Community Affairs. So here is their grant page, links to their active grants that they have. And then when there's those private grants, which is what the foundation directory really is very helpful with. Those are coming from those private foundations or those grant-making public charities. So there's some information about the foundation directory that we talked about today. Those other locations that are available, actually, yep, this is up to date. With the locations in New Jersey. And then there's some links to using those 990 tax ones, whether it's from the IRS, ProPublica, Candid's 990 Finder. There are a bunch of ways to access those different websites. And then there's some helpful guides on how to read them because they are tax forms, not always the easiest things to read. So where to find that vital information. The last thing I want to show you is some requests for proposals or grant announcement places that you might see that are free. Philanthropy Classic, the Philanthropy News Digest has an RFP alert or a grant announcement alert that is free. You can sign up for email alerts. This is a Candid product as well. If you search the RFPs, you can search by subject, you can search by location. So there's a national location, there's a New Jersey specific location. So if I hit search, you can see all the announcements that are targeting New Jersey specifically. Farm credit. Grant Station is a paid product. It is a subscription database. There we go. But they do have a free newsletter that they send out. So that might be something of interest to you. As well as the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits does post funding opportunities. So they're a great place to look, especially if you're new in the nonprofit world. They have a ton of really great information on their website. So let me go back, scroll up a little bit. Please let me know if you have any questions. Now is the time to put it in the chat. I'm going to go back to my slides and just give you my contact information. If you have any questions at all about the foundation directory or the services that we have here at the State Library for grant research and nonprofit management assistance, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I do also do those one-on-one tutorials for the database that we talked about today, Foundation Directory. So if you wanted to set that up, if you're local to Trenton or Mercer County, you can come in on site and we can sit down. It usually takes like 30 to 60 minutes, depending on your needs. just to kind of get you comfortable with researching the database. We don't do the research for you, but we try to provide you with those skills so that you feel confident in doing the research, or someone within your organization can do that research for yourself. Okay. Oh, go back. All right. Do we have any other questions, Andrew?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, so I think we can probably put those credentials into the chat then. So as it was mentioned in the description of today's webinar, you do have the opportunity to use the Foundation Directory Professional remotely for 48 hours. It's just so that you can test out what we've talked about here in today's webinar right away. After those 48 hours, you do have to come on site to use the database at one of those locations, whether it's the state library or other subscribing libraries. If you have any questions about that, feel free to send me an email. So before we close out today, make sure you get those credentials. They are in the chat. There is a way to copy the chat. There should be a little like page next to the smiley face in that chat field where you can copy all of the chat. Or if you're on a computer, you should be able to highlight it as well. There's going to be the URL, so that's the website that you're going to go to. You can enter in the username and password at the top of the screen, and that should get you into the database. I did check that today. It did work. And again, that's roughly 48 hours. It's not exact, so I encourage you to use those sooner rather than later to do some research or to test that out. Okay, so where are we in terms of time? So we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to let everybody try to get those credentials. Andrew, can we put the handout in the chat as well in case someone didn't get it at the beginning?
Sure.
Okay, so the handout and the recording is going to be sent to all registrants in case someone couldn't make it, but the credentials themselves are not going to be sent by email. So make sure you get those before you exit today's webinar. And that's all I have, Andrew, if you want to close it out.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Leigh. Yes, if anybody would like to schedule a one-on-one, or if you have more questions, please reach out to Leigh, either in her email or her phone. She is happy to help in any way. And as I mentioned before, the Funding Information Center webpage is chock full of information. So I encourage you to look at that. That's accessible 24/7 and includes pretty much anything you would need to get started. So we'll go ahead and close it out and just let everybody know, be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you.